Hey, this is Doc Yates. I'm a naturopathic doctor, registered acupuncturist, and a kinesiologist, owner of the Yates Naturopathic Clinic, and the founder of the interactive health website, Able Health. And this is the Simply Health Podcast, a show for females where I work to simplify and demystify the secrets of achieving optimal health naturally, based on my own experience in working with thousands of female patients over the past 15 years of my clinical practice. Welcome to Simply Health. Hey, this is Doc Yates, and today we're going to talk about 8 simple steps that you can use to get rid of your heartburn. Now, typically speaking, when you have this concern, you go to your doctor and they give you a PPI. So these are medications that block your stomach's ability to produce stomach acid, and this prescription is supposed to be only for 2 weeks. So when you look on the labels, it's safe to use for 2 weeks. The problem is that when you use the medication and you don't do anything else to correct the underlying problem of your heartburn and or acid reflux, then if you don't fix it, that medication is just a Band-Aid, and which means you can't get off of it. So you stay on it long term, and it leads to a host of side effects. It reduces your immune function, it reduces your mineral absorption, it can lead you more prone to things like osteoporosis and other issues. So it's really not a good medication to be on, and I feel like more and more, the longer they've been around, the more and more research that's coming out to show how problematic these medications can be. But at the same time, if you don't do the other corrections, you can't have constant heartburn, because that's a problem too. So today we're going to discuss what are the things that you can do. I've been to a lot of seminars, talked to a lot of practitioners, and seen a lot of patients about this, and what I've been able to do is take all of this and put it together into these 8 steps. So we're going to start off with the basic ones that everyone knows. Point number 1, acidic foods and spice. If these are obvious, these are the ones where you're like, oh, I shouldn't have had that spicy tomato sauce or that spaghetti sauce or that chili because it flares it up. Any of these types of acidic foods, tomato-based foods, for a lot of people, chocolate, fried foods, avoid those for now. Now, if you have those and they don't bother you at all, then we're going to talk about that in step number 8. But for now, keep that in your head. Avoid the common problematic foods. Another common problematic food, which gets its own category, point number 2, is coffee. There's been several cases where literally that was the only thing we had to do. Someone was drinking, 4+ cups of coffee per day, and once we got them down to 1 cup, heartburn's gone. So really be aware of your coffee intake. And not only that, if you're dealing with stress, insomnia, anxiety of any kind, please, please, please pull back on your coffee intake. Coffee is delicious. I'm not going to argue that, but it doesn't take too much coffee to be just too much. Number 3, acupuncture and stress. I don't really see too many digestive issues or too many digestive cases in general that are not flared up by stress. And while I wouldn't say the only reason they have this is stress, I'm very confidently say that stress will be playing a role in it. So the nice thing with acupuncture is that you can always kind of use twofold. So there's points specifically for stress, and then there's points specifically for your stomach. So you can you put together a protocol that's acupuncture for stress affecting your stomach. That is very easy to do. And then if it's not there already on Able Health, there will be point protocols showing you exactly how to identify these points. So you can tune into ablehealth.us to learn a lot more about this. Point number 4, teas and infusions. So since we literally just talked about reducing your coffee intake, and I've mentioned this before, and the main thing is take your second coffee and your third coffee and replace them with other warm drinks. And you could literally use teas and infusions that have herbs in them, so every time you take a sip, instead of irritating your heartburn and your reflux, it would be soothing and treating it. So teas like licorice, meadowsweet. Meadowsweet is an amazing tea for this. Anise, fennel. These are all things that can soothe the stomach, reduce the acid, reduce the inflammation. And for infusion, so just to clarify what an infusion is, technically a tea is an infusion. It's where these herbs are steeping in water. But a tea is a hot infusion. There's also things called cold infusions, where you're taking herbs and you're putting them in cold water. And these are more like powder herbs. The most common two would be marshmallow root powder or slippery elm powder. And while they almost can be used interchangeably, I typically use them like this. When I'm trying to use things for soothing for the bladder and kidneys and kind of like the urinary tract system, I generally lean more towards the marshmallow root powders. When I'm trying to do things to soothe the intestinal tract, then I'd typically lean towards slippery elm powders. So in this case, a slippery elm powder, to use that to soothe your intestinal tract. We use a product, or I've put together a formula where it has meadowsweet, slippery elm, zinc carnosine, licorice extract, all built into one, and you just stir that in with water and take that twice a day. And again, this soothes everything and reduces the inflammation while you're waiting for these underlying treatments to work. Point number 5. This is overlooked a lot, and I find this in so many cases, and it has to do with your stomach position. So while like a true severe hiatus hernia is not that common, mild hiatus hernias, in my opinion, are extremely common. And this can happen from any type of abdominal strain, heavy lifting, coughing, sneezing. And what happens is the stomach and your esophagus, they pass down through your diaphragm, and that's where your stomach sits, just below your diaphragm. And if the stomach gets pushed up a little bit, this also plays, keep in mind, if you're overweight or if you're getting heartburn and only ever happened after pregnancy, any of that extra abdominal weight and pressure can push the stomach up. And I mean just a little bit, like half an inch or an inch. And what happens is that the sphincter for the stomach, which is supposed to close and stop that acid from coming back up, when it gets pushed through that diaphragm, it's almost like it's kind of squeezing it and it's not able to close properly. And you see all this problem with reflux. And so there's a very simple techniques where you can just push in on the stomach, and as the person exhales, you pull down. And I will have a video showing this on the ablehealth.us if it's not there already, so be sure to check that out. Typically 4 to 5 times of doing this, and doing that in combination with some of these diet changes, and you see huge results. So I do that in every single case. Working with the stomach position is crucial for so many cases of heartburn. And sometimes in those cases, I've seen some cases where that was it. Like the person chose not to stop their coffee, they chose not to change their spicy foods, but we just got their stomach in a better position and they were good to go. Point number 6 is your weight. And this ties right back into the last point. Like if you have a lot of extra weight that you're carrying around your abdomen, that extra weight is going to be pushing up against your stomach and pushing it out of position and leading to more increasing your heartburn. So getting the extra weight off is really important. Point number 7. Other things that can irritate your stomach are your medications. So if you're someone who you find that you're using aspirin a lot or Tylenol a lot, these things can irritate your digestive tract, and their constant use can lead to things like heartburn. And there's certain medications where, because that's such a common side effect, if they're, say, naproxen, if they're prescribing it to you and they think it's going to be long-term, they automatically prescribe a stomach-blocking medication with it for long-term, even though it's not supposed to be used long-term, rather than like trying to treat the underlying root cause of the pain or the stomach issues. So be sure that you're double-checking your medications, because if any of those that you're taking on a regular basis are causing heartburn or gastric irritation, or which is called stomach irritation, then that needs to be addressed, because in that case, your medication is the root cause of your problems. Point number 8. So when we discussed point number 1 earlier, and we were talking about tomatoes and spicy foods and acidic foods, if you have heartburn, but you don't really notice that those foods flare it up, but it's just after eating in general, no matter what you're eating, you feel like some bloating, indigestion, and heartburn along with that, but it's not specific to spicy or acidic foods. In that case, sometimes what happens is that the stomach is too slow at emptying. It's not producing enough digestive acid. This is something you see more, if you're 40 plus. Like if you're dealing with a heartburn and it's a kid, this is not the issue. This is definitely not the issue. But for older people, 40 plus, older people, I'm 40 plus, damn. And you're seeing that, and you're seeing these types of things that, and especially if you get the bloating with it, that's a key feature. If you're getting the bloating with it, then you're going to want to use things to improve the digestive strength, not reduce the amount of acid. So in that situation, you use what is called bitters. So there's Swedish bitters, there's Canadian bitters. These are all things that actually increase your digestive enzymes, increase your stomach acid, so that the food is not just sitting there in your stomach, and when it just sits there, and then all the foods, everything starts kind of coming back up instead of moving down properly. There are medications that you will see they prescribe for this to improve what they call gastric emptying, but the side effects of those medications are crazy. Like for guys, like you're going to get breasts. Like that's how crazy the side effect is. Whereas you could literally use something like bitters, where it's just going to improve your digestion, improve your immune function. For me, it's a no-brainer why you would ever want to use the medication versus the bitters. So yeah. Another thing to consider, a lot of times people who are on these stomach acid medications are like, you know what? I did everything right, and I tried to stop the medication, but then my heartburn came back. And this is a really interesting point. 33% of... So let's say this. Say we have 100 people that don't have heartburn. No heartburn symptoms ever whatsoever. And we give them all medications, all 100 of them, medications, these PPI medications to block their stomach acid, and then we stop it. 33% of those people are going to get rebound heartburn from stopping the medication, even though they never had heartburn in the first place. So when you're first weaning off that medication, if sometimes it feels like your heartburn is coming back, it's not necessarily that you haven't treated the root cause. Sometimes it's called rebound. Well, you'd call it like rebound regurgitation or rebound heartburn. So in those situations, when you're first doing that weaning, you just kind of want to double down on some of those herbal extracts and infusions that we discussed, like the licorice extract, the slippery elm. Double down on those for the first 2 weeks of the weaning process to see if that soothes everything as you're going through that rebound effect. So I know 8 points is a lot. Typically we're looking at 5 points for a treatment, but we can really summarize this. It could be as simple as this. You go on a diet that kind of you go on a diet. If I could speak, that would be great. If you go on a diet and you just pull back on the fried foods, the acidic foods, and while you're doing that, you pull back on the extra carbs and you lose some weight. So the diet helps you lose weight. It takes the pressure off the stomach. You go for a treatment, and all you have to do with that treatment, typically it only takes 4 treatments. You do acupuncture, and at the end of each treatment, they push on your stomach, pull it down into position. And then you just take your coffee, you reduce it to 1 coffee per day, and then your extra cups that you would have had are replaced by teas. So it's just those 3 things. Change the diet, change your drinks. If you're going to get some treatments, use like an all-in-one treatment where you can do like acupuncture and stomach manipulation all at the same time. And that, again, that's typically 4 clinic treatments. That's it, assuming you're working with the other underlying diet issues. So I hope this was all helpful. I have got to go because I am pulling into the clinic to get to work. This is Doc Yates signing off. Thanks for tuning in to Simply Health. If you want to learn more about health, check out Able Health. If you want to see some of the other projects that I've been working on in health, business, music, and life, please check out the links below.